Okay, so let's get into the Rage to Reason. Research on Rage to Reason came from Dr. Wayne Fisher. He's a board certified behavior analyst out of the Monroe Meyer Institute, works with a lot of kids with challenging behaviors. And so I'm not going to get into the behavioral concepts. I am happy to share them with you. They are explained some in the curriculum manual that I have that is available for you as well on understanding things like functional communication training, extinction, and all these behavioral terms. Please know that everything with Rage to Reason is research based. There's decades of research on applied behavior analysis, and it uses all research based interventions. So I'm more than happy to share that with you. I'm more than happy to give you readings and that kind of thing. But I don't really have the time, nor do I think it's as important to go into the technical part of it. As long as you can just trust me that it's research based, we can kind of go on from there. But a quick little example is that in behavior analysis, we sometimes do something called functional communication training. And what that looks at is that if there's problem behavior, that you would maybe teach communication to replace that problem behavior that meets the same function. So the little girl that I was working with that had autism and was nonverbal, and she screamed and screamed and screamed. And when we were in the home, we were observing her, and she screamed and screamed and screamed. And then eventually mom stopped and said, "Oh gosh, I didn't realize what time it was. I think she's hungry. Let me fix her a snack." So a little girl with autism, no language, screams and screams and screams, and somehow Cheez-Its show up. Well, that's, remember when we talked at the beginning about the ABC analysis? If I scream and food shows up, what does that reinforce? That screaming makes food show up sometimes. So functional communication training would just be, how can we teach her to ask for food? Could she sign more, or eat, or give a picture, or use words, whatever? That's kind of what functional communication training looks like. And when we use it for kids that try to escape, they're used to being removed from the classroom to not have to do work. We would oftentimes maybe teach them to ask for a break, because if you give me math and I hit and I have to go to the principal's office, then that makes the math go away. If you give me math and I say I'd like a break, please, that also makes the math go away. Problem with that is that even though research shows that functional communication training is very beneficial and very helpful, is that it's not very practical, because sometimes kids can ask for Cheez-Its and the answer is no. And sometimes kids can ask for a break and the answer is no. You have to do the work because you're in school and math is what we're doing right now. So what Dr. Fisher and his colleagues are doing really looks at kind of combining some of these strategies by putting a signal in place. And so again, I'm more than happy to introduce all of that to you, but I, really want to just get into the program itself and know that it's all backed by research. And if you are a data person and a behavior person like me, or you have interest in learning more about that, I'd love to share it with you because I just love it. But I know it's not necessary for everybody to understand the background. Remember that when we're using strategies for coping skills, that we have the sensory, the relaxation, that those things are a part of the program, because we have to teach that regulation. Now, one of the things that we start with before doing Rage to Reason is a functional behavior assessment. I talked about that earlier. It determines the behaviors that are maintained by escape and avoid, specifically to following demands. So in the curriculum guide, there's a functional behavior assessment guide to kind of get you started. It doesn't constitute a full FBA. You can't buy my book and fill out some questions and say you've done an FBA. It needs to be done by somebody with some expertise. But the idea is we're trying to figure out, is this behavior ever working for them to escape? Like, have there been situations where as a parent, you've said, fine, don't worry about it, I'll do it, maybe not out loud, but that the behavior made whatever you were asking them to do go away. You're asking them to take a shower, they fight it, they fight it, they fight it. It's now 11, 12 o'clock at night. It's too late to fight it anymore. They go to bed. That worked for them at that time. Does it work for them every time? No, but think about how it works to play the lottery. You don't win every single time, yet people buy lottery tickets or gamble. That's what's called intermittent reinforcement. So for our kids, it's like they're playing the lottery with you. One of these times I'll cash in. So it doesn't mean that you have to do it every time, but just even once you've done that, where you've let a behavior change your mind in some way, then that's going to reinforce that behavior. And so then that's what our functional behavior assessment would tell us. So these are some of the questions, like, does the behavior ever occur in response to requests to do homework or a chore? Does the behavior occur in response to demands to follow directions, like any basic household routines, or just, any directions? It's time to go somewhere. It's time to do something. Are there types of demands that increase the likelihood of behavior like homework or turning off the computer? And do these behaviors occur frequently during requests to do things and less likely during free play or during preferred activities? So in other words, if they're doing their own thing, they're fine. But if you're asking them to do something on your agenda, then that's when some of the problem behavior comes in. If that's the case, then we have a good guess that maybe some of this behavior is for the escape and avoid, like we talked about. It works to sometimes make this demand go away. So there are 4 phases in Rage to Reason. We do it a little bit different in the home than we do in the school setting. But phase 1 is similar to what we do in the school setting, and what I call it in the parent program is to make peace. So typically, by the time I get to parents, they're having a lot of fighting and do this please, and they're not, and it's just kind of this cycle of not a lot of fun in the household. So phase 1 has to do with a concept called demand fading. So like, I'll give you an example too. In the school setting, we take away all the demands. So we'd reduce the anxiety. There's no demands. So if you can, and I know you can't in every single time doing this program during phase 1, we're going to see if we can get a pass for a week on homework. There's no chores, and we're going to play and build relationships. So I was telling some parents that were getting ready to do this program, I'm like, you guys just need to make peace. Like, every single thing is a fight with you. You're fighting with your daughter to do all these things, and she's refusing and refusing, and you're fighting. And, it's just this very uncomfortable war going on in your household right now. Make peace. Stop asking her to do anything. I know and I know you can't do that 100%. Don't get me wrong. But for the things that you can, to just let go. Like, if you're fighting every night over brushing teeth and half the time they don't end up brushing their teeth anyway, then just for now, not forever, we're going to get to the point where they're going to brush their teeth and take showers, but just let it go. Like, they're not doing it anyway. And all of this fight, just don't ask. Just try to make peace. Just try to play. Just try to rebuild a relationship. Watch a movie together. Do something fun. The one dad that I was working with, he said, it's kind of like a colon cleanse for the soul. And I said, yeah, it's a perfect way of looking at it. Make peace in the home. Don't fight anymore on all these different demands that kids are refusing. Take as many of them as you can off of the table. That's all you have to do in phase 1. Phase 1 can last a couple days. It can last a couple weeks. I don't have a specific time frame, because usually in a school setting especially, we're going to do that based on data. And I have a way to be able to support you in doing this, to kind of look at data and that kind of stuff. But the reason that we do this is I want you to think of that slide I had with the line being so close to the breaking point. Is if that line is always that close to the breaking point, every time we ask them something that doesn't go along their agenda, it's going to cause them to go past the breaking point. And remember, what I said is that for any teaching to occur, we have to bring that line down. Think about what this does for a child. If we reduce the anxiety by taking demands away and taking the homework off the table and all these things that are causing all these problems, what's that going to do to that line? And are there any ways that you need to rebuild the relationship with your child? I'm not saying you don't have a good relationship with your child, but I know as a parent, when I'm fighting all of the time over all of these behaviors and just trying to make it through every night with some of these meltdowns and that kind of stuff, I'm not having a lot of fun with my kid. I'll just be honest. I mean, I love him very much, but I'm not having much fun. And so can I just stop and make peace and put things aside? I'll pay the bills another night. I'm not going to do a load of laundry tonight. What do you want to do? Do you want to watch a movie? Can I sit next to you and play your video game with me? Can you kind of tell me what you're doing? Teach me what you're doing, because I'm not even sure that I really know, and like take an interest and really try to build that relationship. Again, in order to regulate your child, you need to be their surrogate frontal lobe. And if you don't have the relationship with them, they will not let you. So this is a very important piece. I've had parents say, you know what, I needed 2 weeks on this phase. Fine. Now, if you can't take homework off the plate, I understand that. That's still going to have to be a demand. Anything else, do what you've been doing. In this phase, do what you've been doing already. But for as many things as you can take off the list of demands, take them off and try to make peace and spend time with your child in fun and meaningful ways. That's all you got to do for phase 1. And you decide how long you need to do that until you're ready to go on to the next phase. So no demands, making peace is playing, building relationships, reducing anxiety, dysregulation. And then you're also going to do something during this phase, just kind of on the side, is you need to determine reinforcement, because we're going to need to use reinforcement to teach behaviors that are hard for kids. And so you need to make a list, I guess, just on your own, that you'll have a list of two different things. You're going to have what's going to be considered bonus kinds of things and things that are free. So in other words, if while you're making dinner or the kids are in between homework, they play on their Xbox game, that's free. And really the way that I try to describe it is, if that's the babysitter while you're trying to get something done, totally fine, no judgment here. Everybody has to do what they have to do. Then you don't want to make that something they have to earn, because that's too hard. I want this to be something that you can do while you're also taking care of other kids and trying to live your life. So you don't want to take away anything that's free, that they just automatically get, that keeps them entertained. And so usually, like for my son, like watching TV is free for him. He's got an Xbox game that he can do. Sometimes he feels like doing that. That's free for him. Being on his phone is free. Those are things that he just does to kind of keep himself entertained. And I don't want to make those things that he has to earn them, because then that makes it hard for me, because if he hasn't earned them, then he doesn't have anything to do. And I also have my life to take care of. So think about that. But what are bonus things? Like, what are things that you could, doesn't always have to be something you spend money on, but you could go get an ice cream, or could you stop and play a game? Sometimes it's just spending time with your child. Could it be going to the park? Could it be, maybe for some kids it is buying a new Xbox game that they've been waiting for. This little girl that I'm working with, she is reading this series of books, and a new book is coming out. Now, granted, you want to be able to let your kids buy books, but when it's something that's really exciting like that, and a new book in a series, that could be something that could be some, that she's got to show good behavior to get that. And I don't think there's not anything wrong with that. It's just we need to do it in a way that's successful. So phase 2 is called ask and get. This is where in the research they used a signal that indicated what I was talking about with functional communication training and extinction. So let me give you what happened with my son. He became upset one time when we had to go see Dr. Luby. He was mad. We were in the car. He got really frustrated, and he did not mean to do this at all, but he kicked his feet towards the windshield, and because he was bigger and stronger and taller mainly, he was able to get enough leverage off the back of the seat, and it popped, and spider cracked some of the windshield. But I mean, he was upset. He did not want to have to go to the doctor. He was mad about it. He didn't want to have to go. But what happened? I couldn't drive the car like that. So he didn't go, and he kind of won that battle, I guess. And that was always something that was hard for him, having to go somewhere that wasn't part of his agenda. Going to watch his brother's basketball game, going to pick up Katie from gymnastics or whatever. So ask and get means that we're going to teach the child to ask for something and they get it, which for escape and avoid behaviors is to ask to say, no, I don't want to do it, and get that, but we have to use a signal of some sort. That was what was beneficial in the study. So I use in the program Reach to Reason colors as a signal, and I use the colors red and green. So you're going to identify an activity that is a typical area of refusal. Tell the child it's time to brush your teeth. Let them know the signal or visual cue that this is a green, and you can let them say no thanks. So this is the visual that's in the curriculum guide. It's ask and get. So now, after you made peace, you're going to start to pick a couple of things that are refusals, and you're going to say, this one's a green. A green means you can say no thanks. I did that with my son. Andrew's got a basketball game tonight. Tonight it's a green. What does that mean? Green means you can say no thanks. I can say no thanks? Yep, you can say no thanks. Okay, I don't want to go. Great. You could literally see the stress fall off of his shoulders as we started to increase some of these opportunities. And I've had some other kids that are older, that don't like the red and the green. If that's the case, contact me. I'll tell you how we've adapted it. This isn't so set that it has to be exactly this way, as long as the behavioral principles are in place. But, for a couple days, maybe a week, maybe more, depending on how crazy life is. You're going to give the child some demands, asking them to do things, and you're going to say it's a green, and they can say no thanks. Little girl that we started with this in the home, she's a middle school student, thought this was the best thing ever. Everything that we said was green, she said no thanks, and she was just seriously in a good mood. And mom and dad had said she seems so angry all the time. Guess what? They're not saying she seems angry all the time. Yeah, she's not doing her work yet. I mean, she wasn't following directions yet, but we eventually got there. So that's phase two, easy enough. Ask and get, tell them it's a green, they can say no thanks. Again, what do you think where that line is from the breaking point? It's pretty far down. We're getting a lot of space in there. Phase three, making choices. Now, I suggest doing this, but I also get that if you are a family that's too busy to do this, that's fine. You don't have to do this part. And I kind of help you figure out how to make those changes in the curriculum guide, or I will have an opportunity for you to actually ask me questions and stuff as well. So on making choices, everything is still a green, but now there's a choice. And this is called differential reinforcement. There's a choice. So he or she can say no thanks or okay. So it's green and you've got two choices. You can say no thanks, I don't want to do it, or you can say okay, I'll do it. And when they do choose to do it on a green, they get a point. And points are exchanged for reinforcers like activities, tokens, natural food, like the whole family's going to an ice cream for ice cream. Don't give them candy. That wasn't ever naturally something that was going to be happening. Time spent with a friend, a sibling, a parent, this other student, child that I was working with in the home. This was at the end of the school year last year, and he wanted to go to Six Flags, which is an amusement park kind of thing. And he wanted to be able to bring a friend and not have to go with his sister, who he somewhat has conflicts with. So we said, fine, you have to earn 10 points. And mom in June is going to pick a day to take you and a friend to Six Flags. So again, this wasn't a free thing. The free things that he had was to be able to be on his mom's phone or on a tablet. This was something else that he could earn. So it's green. He's got a choice. He can say no thanks, or he can do it and he gets a point. It's totally up to him. He doesn't have to do any of them ever, but he doesn't get any points. The points are for bonus, not for free. So he earned getting his 10 points. The little girl that we're working with didn't care, couldn't find anything on the bonus list. She still said no thanks to everything. But that tells us a lot, because that means that we don't have a lot of reinforcers. So here's the visual that we use for that. It's green. You can say no thanks, you get your free time. Fine, say no thanks, go do whatever you want to do. Or you can say yes and you get a point. Here's why we do this. If you graduate from high school and your family is fine with you living in the basement playing video games all day, that'd be pretty reinforcing, right? But if you don't get up and go to work and find a job, you're never going to have money to buy new video games. So what's more reinforcing? Getting up and going to work gets you money, which is better reinforcer, but it's harder work to get there. So yes, you can say no thanks and go do something fun. But if you do something that maybe isn't preferred and it's not something you really want to do, you're going to get a point, which is eventually going to get you even better things. And so the reinforcement is better. We do the same thing in the school setting. We actually have something called an A list and a B list, where the A list is the really good things and the B list are good but not the great things. And kids are able to then pick, it's green, you can say no thanks, but you get the B list. It's green, you can say yes, you get the A list. It's been really amazing to see how many kids actually are following directions and doing things on a green signal. The other thing that's really important to remember is that when you are using the green signal, the first time you ask a child to do something needs to be one short, small thing. So for our little girl that we were working with, it was one math problem. Yep, I know, doesn't sound like a lot, and it wasn't a lot, but it was one math problem. You decide that you want your child to help clear the table like the rest of the family, and you've kind of been just letting that one go because it's not worth the fight. Maybe the first time the child has to put the napkin in the trash can, and that's it. So it's one small thing so that they can be successful, and that's a really important piece. Then we move into phase four. Phase four is you have to. And in this situation, we're going to use a different color signal, and we're going to identify an activity that is a typical area for refusal. You're going to break it down in a tiny little task and tell your child you need to do your homework at 7 o'clock. Be very specific. let them know the signal or cue that this is a red, and tell them that a red means he has to do it. So like I had been working with my son and I said, it's a green, you don't have to go pick up your brother from the basketball game. But the first day that my husband and I said, okay, we're going to do red. Red is a behavioral principle called extinction, or we're not going to let behavior work anymore. The red was, I'm sorry, no matter what happens, this request is not going away. This demand is not going away. If it's in a school setting, you're not being sent to the principal's office, or if you are, the work is going with you. It's something that we do in order to help kids understand that behavior's not going to work anymore. Well, what happens is something called an extinction burst, where it gets worse before it gets better. And I actually had a kid we were going through and we said, okay, this is a red. And it was one small math problem. And he was like, hitting, are you going to send me home now? And then he'd kick something. Are you going to send me home now? And he literally stopped and said, what the hell is taking so long? I usually get kicked out by now. Because he was used to that working. You'll notice that it says here in the middle, do not let any behavior make the request go away. So you're the keeper of the reinforcement, so it's never taken away, just rather not yet earned. It's on pause. So it's not like you're saying, fine, you don't do the dishes, then you can't have your Nintendo or your PlayStation. No, you're not. You're using as soon as. You need to help with the kitchen dishes. You need to put your napkin in the trash can. This is a red. And as soon as you finish, you can go back to your iPad. That's it. That's all you need to say. And then if they have all this behavior, which is likely because they're used to having all of this behavior that sometimes makes you change your mind, which is fine, but we're not going to let that happen anymore. On a red, it's not going to go anywhere. That demand has to stay. Now, you may say, in my life with my own mental health needs, I have the capacity to do one red a week. That's fine. And I would recommend doing just one red a week, but do at least one. And do something where you can think through all the way to the end, because you have to follow through all the way to the end. Someone said, how long do you have to follow through? Till the day you die. If you can't implement this with fidelity, meaning that you're doing it the way it's intended with its background in research, it won't work. It absolutely won't work. I've had families say rage to reason doesn't work. Well, it doesn't work because people didn't follow through with a red. The research base shows us that it will. So that's where you have to do that. So with the little girl, we did the greens, no thanks to everything. She was a happy camper. We did making choices where she could earn a point, or she could say no thanks. Still said no thanks, that's fine. But then we introduced the red. And so what mom has on a chore chart is there's 5 chores that all of the kids have to do for the week. And she puts a little star by them, and some of them are red and some of them are green. The green ones she can say no thanks. The red ones she has to. She used to fight and complain over every single thing that she was asked to do. Now she sees the red, she doesn't complain anymore. It went on extinction. It wasn't, it's not going away. No matter what I do, no matter how much I cry, stomp my feet, kick, anything, the red's not going away. And so it actually goes on what we call extinction, and the behavior goes away. It gets worse before it gets better, but then it goes away. So she doesn't even fight reds anymore. And when they have to go somewhere that she doesn't want to go, mom doesn't pull this card every time, but when she does and says, I'm sorry, hon, this one's a red, she just kind of goes, whoa. But she goes. And before, it was oftentimes an hour of trying to get her to get into the car when she was refusing. So here's what I do for the red. The red is you have to, can you help me? Could be on there if it's a homework thing. You want to make sure that they can know that they can ask for help, or they can say okay. And on a red, they always get a point. Right? So we always get that point to go for the better reinforcer, because working is harder. Doing things that you don't want to is harder. Listening to an authority figure is harder, but you're going to get reinforcement for it. Okay? So on the have to, you start with a very simple task, like one addition problem for homework or a small part of a chore. Wait him out until he does the task. Use an as soon as statement. As soon as you do your math, you can have X, which is a preferred item that belongs to you, or a bonus activity that is exchanged for points. So again, I don't really like looking at like taking things away, but didn't you buy the Xbox? It's yours. So you just hold, it's something you own, and they can have it as long as they're doing what they're supposed to. On the greens, they just get it for free. When it comes to a red, yeah, you can go back to it as soon as you do the activity or demand that I've asked you to do. And so we ignore any behaviors verbally, still redirect and block. And as soon as he's finished the task, he can give him a point and he can choose an activity. In the beginning, it should include something daily. I know that seems like a lot, but if your kids are having problem behavior daily, then they need to have reinforcement daily. And again, when we get into how I'm going to actually help you by consulting to walk you through all of this, we'll be able to kind of help you figure out how to do that part individually. So what if you wait him out and he doesn't comply? How long do you wait and what do I do? So if your child's young and you can successfully use physical guidance, after 15 to 20 minutes, it's time for you to clear the dishes. This is a red. As soon as you finish, you can have free time. I'm setting a timer for 1 minute. When the timer goes off, I'll help you. Set the timer, walk away. After the timer goes off, you say, okay, red means you have to do it. So I'm going to help you. 3, 2, 1, and help. We did this with a little guy. All we did was hand over hand help him swipe a napkin into a trash can that we brought over to the table. Why? Because we want for him to be able to feel what it feels like to get reinforcement for doing something. So if you wait them out, you're waiting them out for an hour. That's an hour before they can pick something and get a point and get a bonus list kind of activity. You want it to be able to be faster than that. Physical guidance shouldn't take more than 3 weeks. And if you're still using it or need to use it for longer than a minute, you want to stop immediately and use the wait out procedure. And again, I can kind of guide you through some of that. If the child's older and cannot tolerate physical assistance, or after 3 weeks, use the wait out procedure. So I do this with my older kids. I'm just going to wait them out. So I'm going to give the direction and wait till he complies, even if that means for a significant amount of time. What I do in the school setting is kids don't leave. Like I've already worked this out with the parent, and when it's a red, they don't leave. They can't go until they do the red. Remember, the red activity is one math problem. I'm asking them for a small little thing. Make sure we stop and give water and snacks and breaks for lunch and dinner and make arrangements to follow through as long as it takes. If he sleeps, just wait till he wakes up. Guess what? It's still not going anywhere. As soon as you finish this, you can have your free time back. At school, I don't let him go home and I wait it out all day. So that's something that we can do with that physical guidance if needed for some kids. So then we increase the demand. So with the help of a consultant or behavior analyst, increase the amount of red demands and the number of points needed for reinforcement. So this is very individualized. It's hard for me to say in a workshop exactly what the contingencies are of how to do it because it's kind of based on, well, it's not kind of, it is based on data and figuring out how to do that. So there's going to be an opportunity I'll share with you with the end on how to get some of that consultation and or ordering the curriculum guide and getting some of these visuals and that kind of stuff. So that can all be very helpful. Okay, I'm going to go back real quick just because this is probably new and I just want to make sure I can review very quickly. So phase 1, make peace. No demands, no homework, no chores, as many demands as you can take away. I know you can't take all of them away. I know for some of you, you want to go to church. That's fine. Go to church. Do whatever you've been doing to make that happen. But for as many things as you can, make peace. Okay. Phase 2, ask and get. Identify an area that's a refusal. Tell them it's time to brush their teeth and tell them it's a green. Here's our cue. It's green. They can say no thanks. That's phase 2. Phase 3 is making choices. It's still a green. They can say no thanks or they can say yes. So here on the green, they can say no thanks. They go back to free time. They say yes, they get a point. And remember, we've made a list that points can be exchanged for bonus items. Going to get an ice cream, going to a movie with a friend, going to the park, playing a game with you, mom or dad. It doesn't have to be something that you buy them. In fact, I recommend not being things that you have to buy. And then phase 4, you have to, and this is when we do what's called extinction. The red demand does not go away. So there's a red, you have to do it. You get a point, and points are exchanged for something. I think the biggest piece to understand is like the way I would help you set this up in the beginning is that probably a red gets you a point and 2 points is going to get you something small. It's not going to be like that forever. But in the beginning, we want kids to make what we call contact with reinforcement right away. So yeah, the red's going to get you a point and you do 2 reds in a day, you get 2 points. We're going to go get ice cream. Eventually, you're going to have to do reds all week, and maybe on the weekend we're going to do something. But that's a systematic way of kind of increasing the number of points and the number of tasks and all those kinds of things that can be done with a behavior analyst or a behavior consultant. And depending on your background and what you have learned and that kind of thing. You may be able to guide yourself through some of that too with just maybe a email question now and then. So there's definitely some opportunities. Okay, so that's the rage to reason part. So it's the 4 phases: make peace, use a green, say no thanks, make it a choice, you can earn a point, red means you have to. Lots of opportunities to be able to have me help consult through this process. There'll be some groups and consultation and different things, and definitely the curriculum guide has all the visuals in it for you as well. If you are interested in that, or if you just want 1 or 2 of them, I can probably send those to you. But this can be a very effective program. We had a child that was I was working with the school district, and he had a para with him since 2nd grade, very aggressive, sent somebody to urgent care, was suspended constantly, just really, really significant behavior. And after going through the program in 5th grade, we had his IEP. We dismissed his IEP, put him on a 504, dismissed his para, and he's fully 100% in 5th grade because he was super smart and able to do all of the curriculum. But he had been pulled out 100% of the time because of the behavior. So, the data that we have on how this is working in various settings has just been remarkable. So if you can implement this with fidelity, you can really see some good progress. The last part I'm going to go over is just a few examples for when the behavior is more because the child doesn't like being told no, which is a little different than the child not wanting to follow directions. So you may have one or both of these things going on. So kind of as a bonus at the end here, I'm going to kind of help you through some of that as well. So what to do about being told no. So steps to follow. Your child asks you for something. You have to pause and decide in your mind when he or she can have it. Never or just later, and be very specific. The problem is your child asks you for something. Let's say they want an Oreo cookie. You say no, not now. We're going to have dinner. And they ask you again. You say no. They ask you again. They say no. Eventually, probably at some point in their life, they're going to get an Oreo cookie. I don't know when that is. That could be in an hour. It could be in 3 days. But the child doesn't necessarily know that all of that asking and badgering and persistence and all of that isn't what finally got you to give in. And so it ends up being reinforced unintentionally. So what I need for you to do is if your child asks you for something, don't answer. Notice it says pause. And decide in your mind when he or she can have it. Never or just later, and be very specific in your mind. So your child, can I have an Oreo cookie? Instead of saying no, I want you to stop and pause. Okay, the answer is no, but when can they have an Oreo cookie? Okay, after dinner. Then step number 3, tell your child the day and the time. It might not even be that day. You might say you cannot have an Oreo cookie until Friday. That's fine. Or you can say you can have an Oreo cookie at 7 o'clock tonight if you eat all your dinner. But give them a very specific time and let them know right now it's a red. So no, you can't have an Oreo cookie, it's a red. But at 6 o'clock it'll be green, and that'll be a yes. And that goes along with those signals and that behavior concepts that goes along with it. So you start small and follow through, like I said, until the day you die. And so it's really important that if your child is asking you for something, that you pause and decide when that's going to be and be very specific, and then stick with your signals. When it's no, it's red. It means not right now. It will be green, but you decide. Their behavior is not what helps them, is not what makes you decide. Asking 150 times is what makes you finally say, fine, you can have the Oreo cookie. You need to be very specific and follow through. So some examples, we had this little guy that loved calendars. He wanted to buy a calendar every day. At Asperger's syndrome, was a little OCD or obsessive compulsive about calendars. He could tell you whose birthday was on anybody famous on any day of the week. Had a job because he had graduated and was working in a sheltered workshop. And so he had money. So every night I want to go buy a calendar. And it didn't matter that he already had 150 of them. He wanted 5 more. That was just part of the OCD going on. And my son has that a little bit too with wanting to buy things. But we worked with him to say that, okay, here's a calendar. And yes, you have your own money. And I know you want to buy calendars. You want to buy more calendars, but we used a calendar because he liked them so much. And the first week, everything on the calendar was green except a star on a Tuesday. And a star on a Tuesday that was red meant the answer is no. And so instead of, can you buy me a calendar? No, I don't want to tonight. Okay, fine. It's just easier to go buy the calendar. It won't take that long. And all of this kind of messy, what we call intermittent reinforcement. Yes, it's green tonight. We will go at 6 o'clock. Yes, it's green tonight. We will go at 4 o'clock. No, it's red tonight. We're not going no matter what. And then you just let all the behavior happen and you keep with it until the day you die. You cannot give in. The red has to be an extinction. The red has to be all of the behavior. Basically, what red is doing is keeping behavior from changing, things that you as the authority figure decides. And then later, there were 2 days in the week that were red, but there were always going to be some that were green. The next one, red and green solo cups. So this was a little guy who he wanted to watch TV, but his sisters also got a turn. I want to do the Wii. I want to do the Wii. You can't. It's your sister's turn. I want to do the Wii. He's kicking. He's crying. It's my turn to do the Wii. Well, guess what? At some point in his life, it's probably going to be time to do the Wii. So how does he know that all the asking 100 times and kicking and screaming isn't what mom finally said, you can have the Wii, when it was actually time-based and that the sisters were just finished with their show? So we needed to be able to give him a signal so that that behavior went away. So we got red and green solo cups, just those plastic cups, put this next to the TV on like the piece of furniture that the TV was sitting on. And when the red cup was on top, it was showing red signal. And that meant, sorry, the TV's not available. You can't do Wii right now. Maybe the sisters were watching TV, maybe they weren't, but that red signal was there to say that the TV was not available. That's the extinction. No matter what behavior you have, you're not getting the TV. And then when mom, the authority figure, flips it so that the green cup is on top, green signals that if you want to use the TV and you want to ask, the Wii is available. Got rid of all of the behavior because it was very specific. Another example, this little girl was really obsessed about wanting to play with a balloon. They said it just gets her so upset when she can't have the balloon. So we just, like, it was literally written in her plans. Do not ever have this girl go around a balloon. And so I said, well, no, if she likes the balloon, it would be good for her to be able to use it as a reinforcer, but she just needs to know when she can have it and when she can't. So mom and dad had a green little, I made a little round circle that was green on one side and red on the other side. And we put it on the refrigerator. And when the magnet was showed green, you play with the balloon. But guess what? When I turn it over and it says red, it's time for the balloon to go in mom and dad's room. And so, and she learned, I mean, it was short periods of time, right? So she could be successful. So she'd go put the balloon in mom and dad's room when it was red. And then soon we'd move it to green. And then she could have the balloon again. She was so funny because she was like, I like Amy Bowie because I brought the balloon back in her life. But that way we were able to eventually say, you know what? You have to do these 3 things. And then it becomes green and you can have the balloon. It all has to do with making this very structured and that you can follow through and giving those signals, the red and the green. One more example, this little guy wanted to know if he could get the hamster out of his cage constantly. It was in a classroom. The teacher got, can I play with him? Can I hold him? Can I do, well, again, eventually he got to, but he didn't know necessarily that all the asking isn't what got the teacher to finally change her mind. So again, there was a signal on the cage. When it's red, don't ask. The answer is no. You're not going to no matter what. When I flip it over, it's green. If you ask to hold the hamster, oh, it's green. Yeah, sure, you can hold the hamster. And it sounds like small little things, but in terms of how the behavior principles apply in the background, it really, really does show some very, very good effects. So I always end by saying that neurodiversity is a civil right. You know, we have to accept, care, and love all people whose brains work differently. You know, we have all these things that involve having civil rights for people who are of different race and ethnicity and background, but you know, our kids' brains work differently. It doesn't make them less intelligent or anything like that, but we have to understand that that neurodiversity, that changes in that their brains work differently, needs to be accepted just as much as everybody else. Okay, so what now? Sometimes people are a little overwhelmed with a lot of information for Rage to Reason. It is broken down into several phases, but I know sometimes, like, where do I start? What if I have a question? What if something comes up? You are welcome to buy the curriculum guide. It is written for both teachers and parents, so there's a lot of good information, some of what I went over in the training. But the other thing we're going to do is basically some kind of Facebook group where you can receive consultation from me on a week-to-week basis. And then that way you really have the opportunity to be able to say, okay, I'm on phase 1. Am I ready to go to phase 2? Or I'm on phase 2. And I can help you through that process. Certainly don't have to do anything like that if it's something that you want to just try this on your own. But I know sometimes when I'm starting something new, I like to have somebody to ask questions for. So we'll have that. If you are in the St. Louis area, we do some coping skills groups and are going to try to expand that some, maybe doing some of it through webinars and that kind of thing to kind of help the kids or help you teach your kids, and looking at doing some summer camps. And if you have a child that is also having difficulty in the school setting, we do a very comprehensive program in the school setting to use Rage to Reason, and have just had some very remarkable results. Kids going back to the gen ed classroom without much support at all after going through programs. So we certainly are more than happy to help with the school setting as well. So please look at the website, learningmomentum.com. There's lots of opportunities to get more support. Hopefully this can at least get you started on some things. I always tell people, I give a lot of examples of how things have been at home, and they've been tough at times. And my son said, "Why does God make me this way?" And I say, "I don't know. I mean, I wonder the same thing, why he struggles so much." But I do believe that being a behavior analyst and having a child with bipolar has given me some insight. I always tell people my next book is going to be what happens when a behavior analyst has a child with bipolar, WTF, because there's so many times that I didn't know, but I wasn't going to give up. And I tell my son every day, "Hey, you've had trouble and it's been hard, but we've gotten through a lot of it together. And because I know something about behavior and I'm a teacher, and you have some trouble sometimes with anger, we figured something out and we're helping kids." And I tell them every day, I say, "Guess what? We helped another kid today. We helped another family today. We helped another student today," because it gives us both purpose. And I think for me, my mission is to try to get this to as many families as possible, because I recognize how beneficial it's been for my family and all of the kids that I've worked with. So even if it's just you want to send me an email, you want to ask a question, anything like that, this is my new passion in life, to get Rage to Reason to the world so that more kids can have the benefits of being happy again. I think that's the one thing that I love more than anything, is seeing joy in my son again, and that took some time. So I'm here to help, whether again it's just an email or to get on one of our Google groups, or anything else that you can possibly think of that I can help you with. Please know that I'm here, that's what my son and I want to do now to be able to help others. So please call me if you have any questions, or send me an email. And thank you so very, very much for taking the time to listen. Thank you.